It was an ordinary day on Earth, or so it seemed. The sun rose over the world, casting long shadows across the streets, while millions of people went about their daily lives. The planet's leaders were preparing for an event that would change everything. The Galactic Council, a union of the most advanced civilizations in the universe, had called for a meeting, and Earth was one of its key members. The Council was responsible for ensuring peace and cooperation between all races, overseeing trade agreements, resolving disputes, and keeping the galaxy functioning smoothly. For centuries, Earth had been a part of this great intergalactic alliance. But now, the moment had come for Earth to make a decision that no one expected: to leave the Council. The diplomatic meeting room aboard the Council's flagship, a massive space station known as the Star Spire, was filled with representatives from dozens of alien races. From towering insectoids to sleek, silver-skinned beings, the chamber was a melting pot of different species, each with their own way of thinking and acting. They had come to discuss matters of peace, trade, and exploration. But no one had anticipated the bombshell that Earth's representative, Ambassador John Drake, was about to drop. Ambassador Drake stood at the center of the room, his expression calm, but his voice unwavering. He was a tall man, with sharp features and a reputation for diplomacy. However, the words he spoke that day would not be those of a diplomat. Instead, they were the words of someone who had made a decision that would change the fate of the galaxy. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he began, his voice echoing through the grand chamber. "It is with great gravity that I stand before you today. After careful consideration, the United Earth Government has decided to withdraw from the Galactic Council. Effective immediately, Earth will no longer participate in Council affairs." A stunned silence fell over the room. Every representative, regardless of their species, froze. The thought that Earth might leave the Council was unthinkable. For so long, Earth had been a symbol of hope, resilience, and unity among the stars. It had been a driving force in the Council's decisions, and its military and technological might had earned it respect across the galaxy. The representative from the Sithrons, a race of reptilian beings, was the first to speak, his deep voice vibrating through the air. "What is the meaning of this, Earth? Why would you abandon the Council? You have been an integral part of this alliance for generations." Drake remained calm, his gaze steady. "The Galactic Council has failed to live up to its promises. Over the years, we have watched as the Council's decisions have become increasingly ineffective, unable to prevent conflicts, corruption, and exploitation. Earth has grown tired of being part of an organization that fails to act when needed most. It is time for Earth to stand on its own." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The representatives from the Izaran Empire, an ancient race known for their philosophical wisdom, exchanged glances. They were one of the most influential members of the Council, and they had long held a deep respect for humanity. However, the decision to leave the Council was one that they could not easily ignore. "You cannot be serious," said the leader of the Zelrian Alliance, a group of technologically advanced aquatic beings. "This decision will have catastrophic consequences, not only for Earth but for the entire galaxy. The Council is the only force preventing chaos from engulfing the universe. Without Earth, the Council will lose its balance. What will become of the delicate peace we have worked so hard to achieve?" Ambassador Drake took a deep breath. "We are not abandoning peace. We are simply choosing a different path. Earth will continue to uphold its values of freedom, justice, and cooperation. But we will no longer be bound by an organization that no longer serves the greater good." The Zrathi, a race of neutral beings known for their mediating skills, spoke next. "Ambassador Drake, your decision is shocking, to say the least. The Council has always been a place where we could come together to resolve disputes, to build alliances, and to safeguard the peace. Without Earth, the entire structure of the Council will be in jeopardy." "We understand the gravity of our decision," Drake replied, "but Earth has decided that it can no longer stand idly by while others play politics. We will forge our own path, and we believe the galaxy will respect our decision." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the representative from the Koraki, a race of highly intelligent telepathic beings, stood up. This is unprecedented. The council was founded on the principle of unity, but now that unity is being shattered by the very force that once held it together. Earth, you have always been a key player, but this decision will not be taken lightly. Drake nodded. We understand the risks, but this is not a decision we made lightly. Earth will not be bullied into submission by a council that is losing its way. We will continue to work with those who share our values, but we will no longer be part of this broken system. The tension in the room was palpable. No one could quite grasp the enormity of what had just happened. For the first time in the history of the Galactic Council, one of its most important members had walked away. As Ambassador Drake left the chamber, the council members were left to deal with the fallout. The news would spread across the galaxy, like wildfire, igniting debates, fears, and anger. The question on everyone's mind was simple. What would happen next? Without Earth, would the galaxy fall into chaos? Or was this the beginning of something new, a chance for a fresh start? Back on Earth, the decision was already stirring up intense emotions. Some celebrated the move, viewing it as a declaration of independence. Others feared what it might mean for the future. In the days that followed, protests broke out in major cities, with people from all walks of life voicing their opinions on the matter. The government, meanwhile, stood firm in its decision, knowing that it had just set the course for a new era, one that would either lead to peace or plunge the galaxy into darkness. The galaxy, once united under the Galactic Council, now faced a future that was uncertain and fraught with peril. And Earth, for better or for worse, had sparked the beginning of a new chapter in the universe's history. The news of Earth's departure from the Galactic Council sent shockwaves through the galaxy. For centuries, humanity had been a vital part of the Council, contributing not only to technological advancements, but also to maintaining the balance of peace among the diverse alien races. Now the Council was fractured, and the repercussions of Earth's decision began to ripple outwards, spreading tension and confusion among the stars. It was early morning when the news first reached the capital of the Zrathi Empire, the neutral race known for their mediating role in the Council. The Zrathi had long held a position of power, their calm and logical approach helping to keep fragile alliances intact. But as the news spread, panic set in. Their capital city, a sprawling metropolis surrounded by towering crystalline structures, was suddenly alive with activity. The Zrathi leaders gathered in their war room, their minds racing to process the gravity of Earth's exit. This is bad, said Orath, the leader of the Zrathi. His voice, usually calm and measured, was laced with concern. Earth's withdrawal could be the beginning of the end for the Council. I agree, replied Tressel, one of his advisors. The humans were one of the few powers who could hold the Council together. If they leave, the others will follow. The Council's unity was already fragile. Orath paced in the large chamber. His mind raced with countless possibilities. Without Earth, the galactic balance will shift. The weaker factions will start to rise, and the more powerful ones will only grow bolder. We might see civil war, or worse, a galactic war. The advisors nodded in grim agreement. The Zrathi Empire had long stood as a beacon of neutrality, but the coming chaos would test their ability to remain impartial. Back on Earth, the reaction was mixed. The United Earth government had made its decision, but the citizens of Earth were divided. Some hailed the decision as a bold move toward freedom and independence. For them, Earth's withdrawal symbolized a break from the corrupt and ineffective system of the Galactic Council. They believed that humanity could thrive, on its own, without the constraints of a broken galactic system. Others, however, were filled with fear. They saw Earth's exit as the first step into isolationism, a dangerous path that could leave the planet vulnerable to other alien factions. The debates in the streets were heated, and public demonstrations erupted in major cities. Some citizens gathered in support of the government's decision, waving banners and chanting for independence. Others took to the streets to protest, warning of the consequences of abandoning the Council. In the Capitol, President Marcus James stood before a crowd of journalists and reporters, his expression stern. "We understand the risks involved," he said, addressing the nation. "But this decision was made after careful consideration. The Galactic Council has shown itself to be ineffective at best and corrupt at worst. Earth will no longer be part of that system. Our path forward will be one of strength, independence, and cooperation with those who share our values." The president's words were met with mixed reactions. While some applauded, others shouted questions at him, demanding to know how Earth planned to protect itself without the protection of the Council. "What about our allies?" one reporter asked. "What will happen if the galaxy turns against us?" "We will rely on our strength," President James replied. "Humanity has always overcome adversity. This is no different." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the other members of the Council were scrambling to understand Earth's decision. The representatives from the Isiran Empire, a race known for their wisdom and advanced technology, were among the first to respond. They had long regarded Earth with a mixture of respect and caution, and they knew the consequences of this decision could be catastrophic. "I don't understand it," said Vorath, the Isiran ambassador. "Why would they walk away from the Council? Do they not see the danger this creates?" "It's not just the Council they've abandoned," said Jorik, a senior advisor to Vorath. "They've abandoned the entire galactic structure. The balance we've worked so hard to maintain is now in jeopardy." Vorath stood silently for a moment, his mind turning over the implications. "We must act quickly. We need to send a delegation to Earth to understand their reasoning and see if we can bring them back to the table." But as the Isiran representatives began to make plans to approach Earth, it became clear that not everyone saw Earth's withdrawal as a crisis. In the back rooms of various galactic factions, a different kind of conversation was taking place. The warlords of the Eric's Dominion, a violent and power-hungry race, saw an opportunity. Earth's decision had destabilized the Council, and they were quick to exploit the growing divide. Eric's leader, General Kylar, was no stranger to conquest, and he had long envied Earth's military might. Now with the Council weakened, he saw a chance to finally claim control of the galaxy. "This is the moment we've been waiting for," Kylar said, his voice filled with ambition. "The Council is falling apart. Earth has withdrawn. Now is our chance to strike." The Eric's warlords gathered their fleets, preparing for a full-scale invasion of neighboring systems. They knew that the Council's lack of unity would create openings and Earth's absence would leave a vacuum that they could fill. But the chaos was not confined to the Eric's Dominion. Across the galaxy, smaller factions began to rise. Some sought to take advantage of Earth's absence to expand their influence, while others feared what Earth's decision might mean for their future. The result was a galaxy on the brink of panic. In the midst of all this turmoil, the Zarathi continued to try to broker peace. Orath, despite his fears, held firm to his belief that a peaceful resolution was still possible. But with every passing day, the situation grew more dangerous. "We have to find a way to restore balance," Orath said to his advisors, "before it's too late." But time was running out. The galaxy was shifting, and the forces of chaos were beginning to take control. As the galaxy teetered on the edge of chaos, a new reality began to take shape. The announcement of Earth's exit from the Galactic Council had sent ripples through the universe. But it wasn't just a shift in politics. The very foundation of galactic power was beginning to fracture. Earth's absence left a power vacuum, and the struggle for control intensified. Alien factions, once wary of each other, now began to form alliances based on shared ambitions. Some saw this as a chance to finally dominate, while others sought to maintain peace, but no one was certain which path would prevail. On Earth, the decision to leave the Council was still stirring controversy. President Marcus James had stood before the public with confidence, but behind closed doors, the situation was far from certain. Earth's military was on high alert, its defense systems upgraded, and its space fleets were mobilizing. The people of Earth were unsure whether the galaxy would turn against them or if they could manage without the protection of the Council. In the halls of the Earth government, discussions were held about the next steps. President James sat with his most trusted advisors, all of whom shared a sense of unease despite the bold declaration of independence. The room was tense as each person weighed the risks of their position. The decision to withdraw was necessary, President James said, trying to reassure his advisors. But we must be ready for the consequences. Our enemies might see this as a weakness, but we cannot show fear. General William Hayes, the leader of Earth's military forces, nodded in agreement but added a note of caution. We have the technology and the manpower to defend Earth, but we are now an isolated world. The smaller factions in the galaxy may target us, seeing an opportunity to pick us off without the Council's protection. James sighed, rubbing his forehead. What's done is done. We must focus on the future. The Council was no longer serving us. It was time to forge our own path. Yet even as President James spoke of confidence deep down, he knew the situation was dire. The galaxy was vast, and humanity was no longer as united as it once had been. No longer would Earth's voice be heard in the chambers of the Council. The question now was whether humanity could survive on its own. Far across the stars, the leaders of the various galactic factions were reacting to the sudden shift in power. The Eric's Dominion, led by General Kalar, wasted no time. The Erics had long sought dominance, and Earth's withdrawal from the Galactic Council was seen as a perfect opportunity to extend their influence. Kalar had gathered his warlords and military commanders in the war room of his flagship, an enormous battleship that could eclipse the size of some entire planets. This is the moment we've been waiting for, General Kalar growled. His eyes glinted with excitement. Earth's absence means the Council will fall into chaos. We will expand our territory, and no one will be able to stop us. The galaxy is ripe for the taking. His warlords, a collection of brutal, power-hungry individuals, stood around him, nodding in approval. For years they had been biding their time, waiting for a chance to break free of the Council's rule and claim their place at the top of the galactic hierarchy. We'll start with the weaker factions, Kalar continued, his voice filled with venom. The Zrathi have always been too neutral, too afraid to act. The Isharan Empire is divided. Their leaders are too focused on diplomacy and peace. We will strike quickly before they can unite. As Kalar's plan took shape, other factions began to react to Earth's departure in their own ways. The Zrathi, known for their calm demeanor and logical approach, were struggling to maintain their neutrality in a galaxy that was rapidly descending into disorder. They were an ancient race, one of the few to have survived multiple galactic conflicts, but even they were beginning to see the cracks forming in the Council's structure. Orath, the leader of the Zrathi, stood on the balcony of his palace gazing out at the stars. His people had always prided themselves on their ability to mediate disputes, but now, with Earth's departure and the rise of aggressive factions like the Erics, his people were torn. We must take action, Orath muttered to himself. The Council is no more. We cannot allow the galaxy to fall into chaos. But even as Orath contemplated his next steps, his people were divided. Some Zrathi still clung to the hope that peace could be restored, while others were calling for a more forceful approach. One faction, led by a Zrathi general named Varnak, had already begun assembling a fleet to defend their territory. Varnak was known for his military expertise and had long been skeptical of the Council's ability to maintain order. There's no time for diplomacy, General Varnak had argued. We must protect our people, and we must prepare for the inevitable war that is coming. The Zrathi faced a difficult decision: remain neutral and risk being overrun by rising powers, or take a more aggressive stance and fight for their survival. Meanwhile, the Isharan Empire, the most technologically advanced race in the galaxy, found itself in a delicate position. For centuries, the Isharan had been the guardians of knowledge, their ancient wisdom helping to steer the Council toward peace. But now, the Isharan were unsure of their role in the galaxy. Their leaders were divided, with some advocating for a return to the Council's original ideals, and others suggesting they break free and chart a new course. Vorath, the Isharan ambassador, had spent days poring over the reports from his agents in the field. The galaxy is fracturing, he said to his closest advisor, Riller. If we do nothing, we risk losing everything, but if we act too hastily, we might provoke the very war we're trying to avoid. Riller nodded, his face drawn with worry. We cannot afford to make mistakes. The Council is gone and the galaxy is on the edge of collapse. The only way forward is to align ourselves with the right factions and prepare for the worst. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening. The smaller, less powerful races began to see the rising powers as potential allies. The Revan, a fierce warrior race known for their skill in battle, formed a secret alliance with the Eric's Dominion, sensing an opportunity to gain power. The Yatar, a peaceful species known for their artistic culture, sought out the Zirathi, hoping that they would help broker a new kind of peace. But no matter how the factions chose to align themselves, one thing was clear. Earth's decision to leave the Galactic Council had set in motion a series of events that no one could stop. The galaxy was changing, and the future was uncertain. This segment introduces the rise of factions and the immediate reactions to Earth's decision. It sets the stage for the upcoming conflicts, alliances, and struggles for power that will dominate the galaxy. The galaxy was beginning to crack under the pressure of Earth's sudden departure from the Galactic Council. The once strong alliances that had kept the universe in a fragile balance were now splintering. The smaller factions feared the coming chaos, while the more aggressive powers saw Earth's withdrawal as a golden opportunity. War seemed inevitable, but not everyone was ready to give up on diplomacy just yet. The Zirathi, with their centuries-old tradition of peacekeeping, were determined to try and salvage what remained of the Council. Orath, the leader of the Zirathi Empire, knew that time was running out, but he refused to believe that the galaxy was beyond repair. I will not let the galaxy slip into darkness without making one last attempt, Orath declared to his advisors in the grand hall of his palace. We must reach out to Earth and convince them to return to the Council. His advisors, however, were not as hopeful. The withdrawal of Earth had shaken the foundations of everything they had worked for. It might be too late, said Tressel, a senior advisor. Earth has made its decision, and it will not be easy to undo. If anything, their departure might embolden the other factions to act. Orath, his expression grim but determined, waved away the comment. We cannot let that stop us. The Issaran Empire, the Yatar, even the Revan, if we can all come together, we can make Earth understand the consequences of their actions. If we fail, the galaxy will descend into chaos. I will not let that happen without trying. With that, Orath sent word to the representatives of the other races, calling for an emergency diplomatic summit. His message was clear. Earth must be convinced to return to the Council, or the galaxy would face unimaginable consequences. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Marcus James sat alone in the quiet of his office, staring out at the city below. The weight of the decision to leave the Council hung heavy on his shoulders. He had known the risks, but he had also believed it was the right choice for humanity. Yet now the consequences of that decision were becoming clear. The galaxy was beginning to fracture, and while some factions might support Earth's independence, many others were preparing for conflict. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden knock on the door. "Come in," he called. General William Hayes, Earth's military leader, stepped into the room. His face was tight with concern. "Mr. President, the Zirathi have sent a request for a diplomatic summit. They want to meet and discuss Earth's position. They're offering an opportunity to return to the Council." President James turned in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "And what do you think?" "We should be cautious," Hayes replied. "The Zirathi are known for their neutrality, but that doesn't mean they're not trying to manipulate us. They may be trying to convince us to return to a system that no longer serves our best interests." James sighed, rubbing his temples. "I know, but we can't just ignore the situation. If the galaxy falls into war, humanity will be caught in the middle and we'll be unable to protect ourselves." General Hayes nodded. "We need to be prepared for any outcome, whether it's a peaceful resolution or further conflict." The president stood up and walked toward the window, staring out at the stars. "If Earth is to stand on its own, we must remain strong, but we cannot afford to close our doors to diplomacy. I will agree to the summit, but on our terms. Earth's independence is non-negotiable. With the decision made, the diplomatic preparations began. Earth would send a delegation to meet with the Scifi and the other galactic powers who were still committed to the idea of peace. It was a dangerous gamble, but one that Earth had to take. They had to be ready for anything. Meanwhile, the Scifi Empire worked quickly to arrange the summit. Orath personally sent an envoy to Earth bringing word of the upcoming talks. The summit would take place on a neutral world, far from the eyes of the warring factions that now filled the galaxy. The location was carefully chosen, an uninhabited planet in a distant system, far from any military conflict zones. The goal was clear: find a way to stop the galaxy from spiraling into an all-out war, and convince Earth that returning to the Council was the best path forward. On the appointed day, Earth's delegation arrived, led by President James himself. He stood, tall, his eyes scanning the vast hall where the summit was to take place. He had brought with him the best diplomats, strategists, and military advisors. They had come to negotiate, but also to protect humanity's interests. The Scifi had already arrived, their serene, composed faces showing little emotion, but their presence was commanding. Their neutral stance in the galaxy had made them trusted diplomats, but Earth was not about to let its guard down. As President James took his seat, he exchanged glances with General Hayes and the rest of his team. The Scifi representatives sat across from them, their faces impassive but their eyes focused intently on the Earth delegation. The tension in the room was palpable, but both sides knew the stakes. There was too much to lose if this meeting went wrong. Orath, the Scifi leader, was the first to speak. President James, thank you for agreeing to meet with us. The galaxy is at a crossroads, and your decision to leave the Council has created a crisis. We cannot ignore the consequences of this action. We have come here today in the hope that we can convince you to return to the Council and restore the unity that has kept peace for so long. President James's gaze remained steady. I appreciate your concern, Orath, but Earth's position is clear. The Galactic Council has failed us. It has failed to prevent conflict and corruption. Earth will not return to a system that no longer serves its people. There was a long pause before Orath responded. But the Council is not just for one race. It is for the entire galaxy. The galaxy will fall into chaos without it. If Earth remains outside the Council, it risks becoming isolated, vulnerable to the very powers you seek to avoid. President James leaned forward, his voice unwavering. Humanity has always been resilient. We will not be bullied into submission by a system that has proven broken. But we are not closed off to diplomacy. We are open to a new future, one where we can work together, without being under the thumb of a council that no longer serves us. The room fell silent. The future of the galaxy now rested on the negotiations that would follow. The Scifi had hoped for a peaceful resolution, but Earth's resolve was firm. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The galaxy was changing, and Earth would play a central role in whatever came next. This part sets the stage for diplomatic negotiations, highlighting the tense atmosphere and different views between Earth and the Scifi Empire. It's a crucial turning point as humanity must decide whether to engage in diplomacy or remain steadfast in its independence. Minri. The diplomatic summit between Earth and the Scifi had ended, but the galaxy was already moving toward something much darker. Despite the best efforts of peaceful factions, the tension that had been building for weeks finally erupted. Earth's refusal to return to the Galactic Council had left a permanent mark, and now, the consequences of that decision were unfolding with deadly speed. The galaxy was on the brink of war. Back on Earth, President Marcus James paced the halls of the United Earth Government building, deep in thought. The diplomatic meeting with the Scifi had ended in stalemate. The Scifi had pushed hard for Earth's return to the Council, but Earth had refused. The president knew that Earth's decision would not be accepted by every faction in the galaxy. Some, like the Eric's Dominion, were already preparing for war. The idea of a united galaxy under the Galactic Council was slipping away, and in its place factions were beginning to form, each vying for power. General William Hayes entered the room, his face tense. "Mr. President, it's happening. The Eric's Dominion has mobilized their forces. They're moving toward the Zrathi border. It looks like they're about to strike." President James stopped pacing and turned to face Hayes. "I knew this was coming. The Erics have been waiting for an opportunity like this. If they attack the Zrathi, it won't just be a regional conflict. It will be the start of a galaxy-wide war." "We've already started reinforcing our defenses," Hayes said, his voice filled with determination. "But we need to act quickly. The other factions are watching, and if they see us hesitate, they'll think we're weak." James nodded grimly. "We won't hesitate. Earth will not be the target of anyone's aggression. It's time to show the galaxy that humanity stands strong." As the military began its preparations, the rest of the galaxy was already on the move. The Eric's Dominion, led by General Kalar, was advancing with a ruthless determination. Kalar had long believed that Earth's exit from the Galactic Council was a sign of weakness. He had seen the Council as a barrier to his ambitions, and, now with the galaxy destabilizing, he was ready to make his move. The Eric's fleet, a massive armada of warships and battle cruisers, descended on the Zrathi border, their weapons charged and ready. "We will show them that the galaxy belongs to the strong," General Kalar declared as he sat in the command chair of his flagship. His eyes glinted with anticipation as he looked at the holographic map of the galaxy before him. "The Zrathi are weak. They will fall before us." The Zrathi Empire, known for its wisdom and neutrality, had never faced a full-scale invasion in its long history. Orath, the leader of the Zrathi, was a peaceful ruler, dedicated to maintaining the delicate balance between the various races. But now, faced with the growing threat from the Erics, he knew that his people could no longer remain neutral. The Zrathi fleet, though formidable, was no match for the Erics' sheer power. Orath was faced with an impossible choice: surrender or fight for survival. The Zrathi government was in turmoil. Orath held an emergency council meeting with his top military commanders and advisors gathered around a large table. The holographic image of General Varnock, a veteran commander, appeared before him. "We cannot afford to be passive anymore," Varnock said, his voice low and urgent. "The Erics are coming, and they will not stop at the Zrathi border. If we do not fight back, we risk losing everything." Orath's gaze was filled with sorrow. "I never wanted war. Our people have always believed in diplomacy and peace. But if the Erics force our hand, we will fight." General Varnock nodded. "We must act fast. If we can hold the line at the Zrathi border, we might buy time for other factions to intervene. But if we delay, it may be too late." Orath stood up, looking out at the stars from the balcony of his palace. He knew that the fate of the galaxy was hanging in the balance. The Council was no more, and the galaxy was now divided into warring factions, each fighting for their own vision of the future. The Zrathi would not stand alone, but Orath was unsure who would stand with them. In the distant reaches of the galaxy, the Osiran Empire was watching the situation closely. The Osiran were a race of highly advanced beings, known for their wisdom and technological prowess. For centuries, they had been at the center of galactic politics, but now, with the Council fractured and the threat of war looming, their position was uncertain. Vorith, the Osiran ambassador, sat in a darkened chamber, his mind filled with thoughts of the future. The Osiran had long advocated for peace and unity, but the galaxy was changing, and Vorith knew that the time for diplomacy might soon be over. "We cannot afford to sit idly by while the galaxy tears itself apart," Vorith said to his closest advisor, Riller. "The Erics are not just attacking the Zrathi. They are attacking the very idea of peace. We must act." Riller agreed, his face drawn with concern. "The galaxy is falling apart. If the Osiran do not take a stand, others will. The Erics will be unstoppable, and the balance of power will shift in their favor." Vorith stood, his mind racing. "We must offer our support to the Zrathi, but we cannot do it alone. We will need the help of other factions, Earth, the Yatar, the Revan. We must unite the galaxy before it is too late." As Vorith began to prepare a message to Earth, The situation in the galaxy worsened. The Eric's fleet had already begun its assault on the Zrathi, and the sound of battle echoed across the stars. The first shots of the Galactic War had been fired, and there was no turning back. The warships of the Zrathi fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. The Eric's fleet pressed forward, cutting through the defenses like a hot knife through butter. The battle was brutal, and it was clear that the Zrathi could not hold out much longer. Orath stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the battle unfold. His heart was heavy, knowing that his people were facing their darkest hour. But he also knew that they could not give up. The fate of the galaxy depended on the outcome of this battle. And though the Zrathi were losing, they were not without hope. The galaxy was vast and the fight was far from over.